Imagine standing before a stormy ocean. The waves rise like walls, the wind cuts your breath, and every step forward feels swallowed by something greater than you. That is how anxiety appears in our time, not simply a thought, but a tide that pulls you under. The racing heart, the shallow breath, the spiraling what-ifs that never end. It feels like you're living ahead of yourself, drowning in futures that haven't yet arrived. But what if anxiety is not weakness? What if it is not an enemy at all, but a rhythm out of tune, a violin running ahead of the orchestra, a body out of sync with the music of the universe? You see, when the rhythm is broken, collapse begins. Not because you failed, but because you were pulled into a current that isn't yours. And here is the secret. You don't stop the ocean by fighting it. You learn to ride it. The same wave that drowns can also carry. The same tide that shakes you can teach you how to breathe again. So the question is, will you keep resisting the storm, or will you learn to surf the inner tide? This is where Hermetic wisdom begins to speak, because hidden within the chaos of anxiety are ancient laws that reveal how to transform fear into clarity, collapse into rhythm, and vibration into control. Stay with me, because in this journey we'll uncover 3 Hermetic principles that hold the keys to ending the inner storm. And if you've tried everything to quiet your mind and still something feels incomplete, maybe it's because you've been shifting only what is visible, while the hidden cause remained untouched. If something moved inside you right now, that is no accident. Not everyone finds this message, and even fewer are ready to walk beyond it. But if your heart says yes, touch the subscribe symbol below and step into this living temple of conscious creators rewriting reality from its true source. And if you feel others deserve to find this resonance, like this video, so the tide of truth reaches those still searching. Anxiety is often described as if it were a thief, something that sneaks in during the night, robs you of sleep, and disappears before the dawn. But Hermetic wisdom offers a different lens. Anxiety is not an intruder, it is a messenger. Its language is rhythm gone astray. Think about the last time you felt trapped in its grip. You might have been lying in bed, body exhausted, yet your chest rising and falling in shallow gasps, as if you were running while standing still. Thoughts multiply faster than you can catch them, spinning in circles, each one louder than the last. The mind projects futures that have not yet arrived. What if this happens? What if I fail? What if tomorrow collapses before it begins? This spiral is not weakness. It is an orchestra playing out of sync. The Hermetic law of rhythm tells us that everything flows. Tides of oceans, cycles of seasons, inhalations and exhalations, awakenings and rests. Nothing escapes this movement. Anxiety arises when the human system, instead of flowing with rhythm, resists or outruns it. It is as if your inner pendulum were pulled to one side and locked there. Imagine holding a pendulum in your hand, pulling it hard to one extreme, and refusing to let it swing back. The energy builds, the tension grows, until release feels unbearable. That is the anatomy of collapse. This is why anxiety feels like suffocation, not because air is lacking, but because the natural rhythm of breath is lost. Not because life is attacking you, but because your body and mind have forgotten to move in cycles. And when rhythm is forgotten, the storm begins. Think of an orchestra again. If every instrument plays in time, the music flows, no matter how complex. But if the violins rush ahead, or the percussion slows down, the harmony shatters. Anxiety is like this: one part of you rushing into the future, another stuck in the past. While the present remains empty, the melody collapses. The next time the tide rises and your pulse races, try not to judge it as failure. Instead, whisper to yourself, "This is rhythm lost. I can return." Then place a hand on your chest, not to control the breath, but to feel it. Awareness itself is the first swing of the pendulum back into flow. Anxiety is not evidence that you are broken. It is proof that rhythm matters, and that you are sensitive enough to notice its loss. And sensitivity, in Hermetic wisdom, is never weakness. It is the first step to mastery. But rhythm is only the surface. Beneath it lies another secret. Every collapse hides its opposite. Anxiety and clarity are not enemies, but poles of the same spectrum. The Hermetic principle of polarity reveals that everything has two poles, hot and cold, light and dark, life and death. They are not separate realities, but gradients of the same essence. Anxiety and clarity belong to this law. They are not two different forces, but two ends of the same axis. When you are consumed by anxiety, it feels absolute, as though collapse is the only state possible. Yet Hermetic wisdom whispers, the very presence of one pole guarantees the other exists. Anxiety is the evidence that clarity is possible, just as shadow proves the existence of light. Imagine holding a rod of iron. One end burns with heat, the other freezes with cold. Both extremes are expressions of temperature. The rod does not change its nature, it remains iron. In the same way, your mind does not change its nature between clarity and anxiety. The essence is the same. The pole shifts. This is where the first spark of empowerment arises. You are not condemned to anxiety, because anxiety itself implies clarity waiting on the other side. To move across the axis, you do not need to destroy anxiety. You need to shift its pole. The next time you are spiraling, instead of asking, "How do I stop this?" ask, "Where is its opposite?" Name the polarity. Silently, within yourself, declare, "This is the pole of collapse. Its opposite is the pole of rhythm and clarity." By naming both, you remind your system of the axis. This practice is not just symbolic. It activates a reframe in the mind. By recognizing the opposite pole, you loosen the grip of the current one. The mind begins to imagine the possibility of moving. And imagination, in Hermetic science, is not fantasy. It is the first vibration of reality. There was once a man who lived in constant dread of speaking in public. Every time he stood before others, his breath failed, his voice shook, his body betrayed him. One day, a teacher told him, "If anxiety can shake your voice, clarity can steady it. They are one axis. Which side will you choose to walk?" In that moment, the man saw that the tremor itself was energy, and that by naming its opposite, he could shift its direction. Your own anxiety carries the same potential. If it shakes you, it means it holds power. If it holds power, that power can be redirected. This is polarity at work. But how do you shift? What is the dial that moves you from one pole to another? The answer lies in the third Hermetic law, vibration. The Hermetic principle of vibration proclaims, nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. This is not poetry. It is physics and metaphysics in unison. At the deepest level, all matter, all thought, all emotion is vibration. Anxiety, then, is not a solid wall blocking your path. It is a vibration, fast, chaotic, dissonant. Clarity is not a miracle state, but the same vibration tuned into harmony. Think of a guitar string. Tighten it too much and it screeches at a pitch that hurts the ear. Loosen it too much and it barely hums. But tuned just right, it sings with resonance. Your mind works the same way. Anxiety is the over-tightened string, vibrating too fast, producing dissonance. Clarity is the same string, tuned back to balance. This is why practices like breathwork, sound meditation, or rhythmic movement are effective. They do not erase anxiety. They retune the string. They guide vibration back into harmony. You are not fighting an enemy. You are tuning an instrument, and the instrument is you. When the storm rises, close your eyes. Place your hand on your chest. Inhale for 4 counts. Exhale for 6. Feel the vibration shift as your nervous system slows. This is not magic. This is vibration obeying law. Science echoes this Hermetic truth. Heart rate variability, brainwave coherence, resonance breathing. These are the measurable forms of vibration and rhythm. Modern physiology is the mirror of ancient Hermetic wisdom. If you can sense your vibration, you can change it. You are no longer a victim of waves. You become the surfer. You move from being drowned to being carried. This is the alchemy of anxiety. Transformation, not elimination. And once you experience this shift, a realization dawns. The storm was never against you. It was always a teacher, showing you the law of your own vibration. The first map awaits in the pinned comment. Every storm has a pattern. Even chaos has cycles. The Hermetic principle of rhythm reveals that all things rise and fall, expand and contract, flow in and out. This is not only visible in tides or seasons, but in the very mechanics of your breath. When anxiety strikes, breath becomes shallow, rapid, uneven. It feels like suffocation. But if you pay close attention, you will see that even this erratic breath still carries rhythm. The tide is hidden, but it is there. To stop anxiety, you do not need to force silence. You need to remember rhythm. Imagine standing on a beach watching waves crash in restless motion. No matter how violent, each wave follows a sequence. Advance, retreat, advance, retreat. Anxiety blinds you to this pattern. It convinces you the storm will never end. But Hermetic wisdom says, no wave is eternal. The tide always shifts. Practical mirror. When anxiety rises, align with the tide. Inhale as the wave advances. Exhale as it retreats. Do not fight the ocean. Breathe with it. You will discover that even in the midst of collapse, you can find an inner shore. Application in daily life. Before entering a meeting, before sending an important message, pause and take 3 conscious breaths. 4 in, 6 out. It takes less than a minute, yet it resets the pendulum. This simple act is the law of rhythm lived in your body. The storm of anxiety teaches this. Rhythm is the bridge between chaos and clarity. But rhythm is not enough. You must also understand that every state has an opposite pole. The Hermetic principle of polarity declares that opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Heat and cold, light and dark, fear and courage. They are not separate realities. They are gradients of the same essence. Anxiety and clarity, too, belong to this law. When caught in anxiety, you feel imprisoned. Yet Hermetic wisdom reveals the very intensity of your collapse is proof of your potential clarity. The same energy flows across the axis. What shakes you today can steady you tomorrow. Think of a pendulum again. If it swings far into anxiety, it has equal potential to swing into clarity. The amplitude is the same. The difference is the pole. Practical exercise. The next time the storm rises, name the axis. Say within yourself, this is anxiety, the pole of collapse. Its opposite is clarity, the pole of rhythm. By naming both, you remind your mind that clarity is not absent. It is simply waiting at the other end. Application in relationships. Imagine you are about to enter a difficult conversation. Anxiety may seize your body, trembling, overthinking, imagining rejection. Instead of resisting, name the polarity. This tension means there is clarity possible here. By claiming the axis, you create space for choice. This practice reframes anxiety as energy, not as weakness. The same current that threatens to drown you can carry you if redirected. But how do you shift the pole? How do you turn vibration itself into your ally? The Hermetic principle of vibration proclaims, nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. This truth is both mystical and scientific. Quantum physics confirms what Hermetic sages knew. Reality is frequency. Anxiety is not a fixed block. It is a vibration. Rapid, chaotic, dissonant. Clarity is not a miracle state. It is the same vibration, tuned into harmony. Picture a stringed instrument. When over-tightened, it screeches. When tuned, it sings. Your mind and body are this instrument. Anxiety is the over-tightened string. Clarity is the same string retuned. This is why sound, breath, and rhythm change your state. They don't erase anxiety. They shift its frequency. When you exhale longer than you inhale, your nervous system lowers its vibration. When you hum softly, the resonance retunes your chest. When you step into silence, the vibration settles. Practical micro-practice. In a moment of panic, hum a single tone on your exhale. Feel your chest vibrate. This is vibration reclaiming harmony. It is simple, but it is law. Application in work. Before opening your laptop to a flood of emails, pause. Place both hands on your desk. Breathe. Hum. Set vibration before entering the field. The storm outside may not change, but the resonance inside will. Hermetic wisdom here is liberating. You do not have to erase anxiety to control it. You have to shift its vibration. You are not the victim of the storm. You are the musician tuning your own instrument. And this realization brings the first deep revelation. Anxiety was never a monster. It was a teacher, showing you the forgotten laws of rhythm, polarity, and vibration. And when these laws are lived, anxiety transforms from collapse into initiation, a portal into mastery. If you're still here, this frequency is yours. Subscribe now and keep walking the path with us. The next map is already unfolding. The first tool of integration is hidden in plain sight, your breath. The Hermetic principle of rhythm is not abstract. It is already written into the very act of inhaling and exhaling. To surf anxiety, you must learn to breathe not as a reflex but as a ritual. When anxiety strikes, the breath becomes fragmented, shallow, rapid, panicked. The body thinks it is drowning, even when surrounded by air. But breath can also be the doorway back to rhythm. Imagine your lungs as waves. Each inhale a tide rising, each exhale a tide retreating. By aligning with this cycle, you begin to surf the storm instead of fighting it. Practical exercise. Sit with your feet on the ground. Place your hand on your chest. Inhale for 4 counts. Exhale for 6. Do this 5 times. Feel the pendulum of breath restoring its swing. The exhale longer than the inhale signals to your nervous system. The storm is over. You are safe. Application at work. Before opening an email that triggers dread, pause. Breathe in for 4, out for 6. Watch how the body calms before the mind reacts. In this rhythm, decisions become clearer. Meetings shift. Conversations carry less weight of fear. Application in relationships. When tension rises in a dialogue, rather than rushing words, anchor with a breath. Even one conscious exhale can prevent escalation. Breath here is not weakness. It is rhythm reclaiming mastery. Hermetic wisdom says, to master the tides outside, you must first master the tides within. Breath is the first surfboard. But rhythm alone does not dissolve anxiety. You must also learn to shift its pole. The second tool is awareness of polarity. Every anxious moment is a doorway to its opposite, but the doorway only opens when named. Think of the principle of polarity as a compass. When lost in the storm, naming your pole is like orienting the needle toward north. Without this, you wander in circles. With it, you regain direction. Practical ritual. The next time you feel the wave of anxiety, say inwardly, "This is the pole of collapse." Then name its opposite. The opposite pole is clarity. Even if you do not feel clear yet, the act of naming sets the axis in motion. It is as though you remind your system, clarity exists. It is reachable. Application at work. Imagine being overwhelmed by a deadline. Anxiety says, you will fail. But polarity reframes, this pressure is the pole of collapse. Its opposite is the pole of focus. By naming both, you shift toward the focus needed to act. Application in relationships. During conflict, anxiety insists the bond is breaking, but polarity reframes, this tension is the pole of discord. Its opposite is the pole of deeper connection. By naming both, you open space for resolution. This is not denial. It is transmutation. You are not ignoring the storm. You are using its energy to find the other shore. Hermetic wisdom reminds us, polarity is not about erasing one side, but about shifting degrees. Cold turns to heat. Fear turns to courage. Anxiety turns to clarity by moving along the axis. But to move along the axis, you need a dial, and that dial is vibration. The third tool is vibration. Anxiety is vibration too rapid, too chaotic. Clarity is vibration tuned. To surf anxiety, you must become the musician of your own instrument. Micro practice. Hum on your exhale. The vibration in your chest shifts your frequency. Do this 3 times. Feel how your mind quiets as your body resonates. Another tool, movement. Shake your hands, sway gently, walk slowly. Every motion changes vibration. Anxiety is static dissonance. Movement restores flow. Application at work. Before speaking in public, hum softly backstage. Your voice steadies, your vibration grounds. Instead of being overtaken by the storm, you ride its energy. Application in daily purpose. When overwhelmed by choices, vibration practice centers you. Sit in silence, breathe, hum, and then decide. The choice emerges not from fear, but from resonance. Science mirrors this. Heart coherence, brainwave entrainment, sound therapy. But Hermetic wisdom already knew. To change your state, change your vibration. Here lies the deeper truth. Anxiety is not to be destroyed. It is to be tuned. And once you tune it, you discover that what once drowned you now carries you forward. And when these practices are lived, anxiety is no longer collapse. It becomes a portal into initiation. Write what echoed in you. It's no coincidence. Your words may become the mirror another seeker needs today. Share your resonance below. Most people treat anxiety as an enemy to be fought, silenced, or erased. But Hermetic wisdom teaches what appears as shadow often hides a gate. The very thing you resist may be the threshold you are called to cross. Anxiety is the guardian at the threshold. In ancient myths, every hero encountered a monster at the edge of transformation. The dragon guarding treasure, the sphinx asking its riddle, the storm before safe harbor. The monster was never random. It was the necessary threshold. Without meeting it, the hero could not enter the next stage. Think of your anxiety this way. The racing heart, the restless mind, the sense of collapse. These are not punishments but guardians. They test your readiness to pass. Hermetic practice. Instead of asking, "How do I stop this?" ask, "What door is this storm guarding?" The moment you ask, anxiety shifts from enemy to messenger. You may see that behind the panic is a fear of failure, a hidden desire for approval, or a deep call to change direction. Each is a door. Application in daily life. Before a major step, a new job, a relationship, a creative project, anxiety appears. Most retreat. But the Hermetic initiate says, "This trembling means I stand at a threshold." Then instead of fleeing, they enter. The law here is simple. Shadow is not a wall. It is a gate. But every gate requires a key. What if the key lies in the archetypes hidden within you? Anxiety awakens archetypes, inner figures that carry both shadow and gift. To expand through anxiety, you must meet these figures consciously. The first archetype is the drowned one. This is the part of you that fears being consumed by the wave. Powerless against the tide. It whispers, "You cannot handle this." Meeting this archetype with awareness transforms fear into humility, the recognition that you cannot control the ocean, only learn to ride it. The second archetype is the surfer. This is the one who does not fight the tide, but dances with it. Anxiety becomes energy to balance upon. What once drowned becomes movement. Meeting this archetype awakens courage. The third is the alchemist. This is the one who does not merely ride the wave but transforms its energy into wisdom. Anxiety becomes initiation. Collapse becomes clarity. This archetype is awakened when you no longer seek to erase the storm, but to learn from it. Hermetic practice. When anxiety rises, close your eyes and ask, "Which archetype stands here?" Naming the figure shifts the energy. If you meet the drowned one, breathe humility. If you meet the surfer, breathe courage. If you meet the alchemist, breathe transformation. Application. Imagine anxiety before speaking to an audience. The drowned one trembles, fearing collapse. The surfer steadies breath, riding the tremor into presence. The alchemist listens deeper. This fear means truth is near. Speak it. Anxiety becomes not the end of your path, but the beginning of your myth. But myths always speak of transformation through symbol, and anxiety has its own great symbol, the storm. The storm has always been a sacred teacher. In nearly every tradition, storms symbolize the chaos before renewal, floods before new creation, tempests before calm seas, lightning before revelation. Anxiety too is storm, but storm as initiation. When the mind races, when breath shortens, when collapse feels inevitable, Hermetic wisdom says, this is the inner storm cleansing what is old. The chaos is not meaningless. It is renewal preparing itself. Practical ritual. Instead of shrinking from anxiety, step into symbolic dialogue. Say silently, storm, what do you carry? What must you wash away? What must you awaken? Treat anxiety not as noise, but as oracle. Application in work. Anxiety before change means old structures are breaking. The storm clears the way. Application in relationships. Anxiety before intimacy means defenses are dissolving. The storm is preparing deeper connection. Application in purpose. Anxiety before new creation means old identity is dying. The storm births the new. The law is this: storms are never random. They arrive when the air must change. Anxiety is your personal storm. By treating it as teacher, you transform collapse into initiation. Hermetic wisdom concludes, the storm is not your end. It is your passage. And when the storm becomes passage, integration must follow, carrying wisdom into work, love, and purpose. This portal has a sequence. Follow the thread in the pinned comment and receive the full practice that turns anxiety into initiation. At the beginning of this journey, we stood before the storm. Waves towered, winds howled. The ocean felt merciless. Anxiety was painted as the sea that drowns. And yet, after walking through the Hermetic laws of rhythm, polarity, and vibration, the image changes. The same ocean that once swallowed you now reveals itself as a vast, living teacher. This is the great reframe. The wave never wished to destroy you. It only demanded that you learn to move with it. The ocean has no malice, it only has rhythm. The storm has no hatred, it only has force. Anxiety, too, has no intent to break you. It only asks you to align. Think of your life like a ship. Without rhythm, the sails tear. Without polarity, the compass is lost. Without vibration, the hull shatters. But with Hermetic wisdom, you find navigation. Anxiety becomes not the storm that ends the journey, but the wave that carries the vessel farther than calm waters ever could. Practical mirror. The next time anxiety rises, instead of saying, I am drowning, whisper, I am learning to ride. That shift alone transforms collapse into movement. It does not make the storm disappear, but it makes you a navigator. Hermetic initiates always return to the same truth. Nothing is enemy. Everything is teacher. The ocean you feared has become the ocean you trust. The wave that threatened to consume you has become the wave that carries you. But the ocean has one more secret. The rhythm of your own heart is its echo. The Hermetic sages taught that the microcosm reflects the macrocosm. The universe is mirrored in the body. The tides of the sea are echoed in the tides of the heart. This is why anxiety feels so physical, because rhythm lost in the mind reverberates through the body's tides. Place your hand on your chest. Feel the pulse. Each beat is a wave against the shore of your ribs. This is the law of rhythm embodied. Even in moments of collapse, the heart continues its pendulum. Contraction, release, contraction, release. The body remembers what the mind forgets. Application in daily life. When anxiety overwhelms, shift attention from spiraling thoughts to the steady beat beneath your hand. Whisper inwardly, this is the tide that never abandons me. Anxiety may still rage, but the heart becomes anchor. Application in relationships. During conflict, rather than drowning in argument, touch your chest discreetly. Remind yourself of the tide within. Then speak from rhythm, not reaction. Application in purpose. Before creating something new, anxiety often surges. Instead of letting it paralyze, align with the heartbeat. Let its rhythm dictate your first step. Hermetic wisdom says, the external ocean teaches you about the internal one. The storm outside is mirrored in the waves of breath and pulse. Master the inner tide, and the outer storm loses its power. But storms never vanish entirely. They return, And when they do, the initiate no longer asks, "Why me?" but "What is this wave teaching me now?" In truth, anxiety was never the end of your path. It was always a passage. What felt like collapse was initiation into rhythm. What seemed like chaos was invitation into polarity. What shook like fear was vibration waiting to be tuned. This is the Hermetic synthesis. Storms return, waves rise, tides shift, but you are no longer the one who drowns. You are the one who rides. The ocean is the same, but you are different. Take this image with you, a surfer on the crest of a massive wave. To the untrained, it looks like madness, certain death. To the initiate, it is flight. The same wave that terrifies the crowd carries the one who knows how to move with it. This is you, once the laws are lived. Practical closing ritual. The next time anxiety rises, pause, breathe with rhythm, name the poles, retune the vibration. Then visualize yourself on the wave, carried, not consumed. This image imprints the Hermetic codes deeper into your subconscious. The journey began in collapse. It ends in carriage. But truly, this is not an ending. It is the first initiation into living by law. And if anxiety can be transformed into initiation, what other shadows are waiting to reveal their hidden laws? The next code is already waiting. Subscribe and cross the veil. What we explored today was only the tide of anxiety, but another law, another portal is already calling. Step through.